precisely 1:15. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News edited by Ramesh Piris and read by Sharifa Tahir. Headlines. The 49th session of UNHRC begins in Geneva today. The POCSL approves continuation of extended power cuts. More fuel ships to arrive in the country today. The Health Ministry says no PCR tests for Sri Lanka-bound travellers from tomorrow. The Archbishop of Colombo is to meet His Holiness Pope Francis at the Vatican today. Geological Survey and Mines Bureau to resume construction of the Green Sand Ferry concept from tomorrow. Outpouring of support for stranded Ukrainians. In international stories, Ukraine and Russia to hold talks. Sports cricket. Australian cricket team arrives in Pakistan for first tour in 24 years. Local news in detail. The Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka announced that it has approved the request of the Ceylon Electricity Board for extended power cuts today. The PUCSL said that power cuts of 5 hours and 15 minutes will be imposed for areas under the groups PQRST UVW. This will be carried out under two phases with a power cut of 2 hours and 45 minutes between 8:30 a.m. and 4:45 p.m. and another 2 hours between 4:45 p.m. and 9:45 p.m. Meanwhile, power cuts of 4 hours and 40 minutes are to be imposed for areas under groups A, B, C. This will also be executed under two phases with 2 hours and 40 minutes between 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. and 2 hours between 4:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. The Ministry of Energy says 2 more ships with consignments of diesel will arrive in the country today. Accordingly, one of the ships will bring a consignment of 28,500 metric tons of auto diesel and 9,000 metric tons of jet fuel. The Energy Ministry said that other ships will transport 30,300 metric tons of auto diesel and 70,000 metric tons of super diesel. Both ships that are due to arrive today are from Singapore. Meanwhile, arrangements have been made to unload the ship consignment containing 38,400 metric tons of petrol with a letter of credit worth $30 million today, while the distribution of fuel will begin tomorrow. The Health Ministry says fully vaccinated travellers will not be required to undergo a PCR or RAT test prior to arriving in Sri Lanka with effect from tomorrow. The ministry said as different countries have different phases of vaccination for the inbound travellers, if the recommended doses of the COVID-19 vaccination are completed and depart from abroad 2 weeks after completion of vaccination, they will be considered as fully vaccinated. Children of 18 years and below who have obtained at least a single dose of a recognized vaccine will be considered as fully vaccinated if departed from abroad 2 weeks after completion of vaccination. The Archdiocese of Colombo announced the Archbishop of Colombo, Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit, is to meet His Holiness Pope Francis at Vatican today. Both Catholic leaders will discuss on the investigations that are carried out on the Easter Sunday bomb attack. They are to meet at 11 a.m. Rome time, according to sources. Environment Minister Mahinda Amaravira has instructed the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau to resume construction of the Green Sand Ferry concept from tomorrow in accordance with the guidelines of the Presidential Task Force on Geological Resources Management. The minister called for the resumption of the Green Sand Ferry, focusing on preventing severe damage to riverbanks due to using tractors for sand mining directly into rivers, conserving riverbanks and adopting a scientific approach to sustainable sand removal. According to the Green Sand Ferry concept, the rivers and riverbanks and the surrounding environment are protected. An area about 10 feet from the riverbank should be designated as a green zone under this system. There is an outpouring of support for Ukrainians stranded in Sri Lanka, with free accommodation and food being offered by several Sri Lankans and others. Tourism Minister Prasanna Ranatunga said that the cabinet will decide today if to offer free visa extensions for the stranded Ukrainians or if they will need to pay a fee. Ukrainians stranded in Sri Lanka as a result of the invasion of their country by Russian troops have appealed for lodging until the fighting ends and flights to Ukraine resume. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation giving you the news. Continuing with more stories here at home. The Health Ministry says that another 977 persons have tested positive for COVID-19 yesterday. The total number of coronavirus cases registered in the country thus far climbs to 645,037 with this. Meanwhile, over 20,000 patients infected with the virus are currently undergoing treatment island-wide. The total number of COVID-19 deaths in the country stands at 16,190. 19,309 vaccine doses have been administered against COVID-19 in Sri Lanka yesterday. Furthermore, 15,463 persons received the Pfizer booster dose yesterday. Accordingly, 7,159,638 individuals have obtained the booster jab in Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, a total of 38,229,985 vaccine doses have been administered against COVID-19 in the country since last January. State Minister Sathasivam Vijayandiran says that the process of providing compensation to the affected farmers in the Batticaloa district commenced today. In the first phase, compensation will be given to farmers affected during the Maha season 2020 and 2021. 9,736 farmers stand to benefit from the compensation scheme. A special discussion will be held under the patronage of the Ministry of Power, Gamini Lokuge, regarding the alternative methods of obtaining fuel for the Ceylon Electricity Board. The minister said that representatives of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and Lanka IOC will also participate in the relevant discussions. Further, he stated that if CEB does not receive fuel from both entities, officials need to find a method to get fuel to the CEB. That's local news for the moment.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The 49th regular session of the United Nations Human Rights Council will begin in Geneva, Switzerland today. The UNHRC will be in session until the 1st of April. The Human Rights Council will consider the report of the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights on the human rights situation in Sri Lanka, including a progress in reconciliation and accountability on the 3rd of March. It will be followed by a statement by Foreign Minister G.L. Piris and an interactive dialogue. The current situation in Ukraine will take center stage during the 49th session of the UN Human Rights Council.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
This is Watchlight.
Health authorities have urged the people to pay close attention to hygienic practices and COVID-19 health guidelines during the upcoming New Year festive season. Dr. Anwar Hamdani, the Director of Medical Technology Services and Chief Coordinator of COVID-19 at the Ministry of Health, emphasized that people should avoid non-essential travel during the festive season to prevent the further spread of the virus.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
No matter what anyone says, for your lease, visit the Leasing Mahagedara. People's Leasing, Friendly Leasing Mahagedara. More information from the nearest People's Leasing branch.
People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
And in world news headlines, Ukraine and Russia to hold talks. The Russian ruble plunges to record low amid outrage over Ukraine. Pakistan-Afghan border reopens. We move on to world news in detail now. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his government delegation will hold talks with Russia. He said on Sunday that the meeting will take place with no conditions in a Belarus-Ukraine border area. Zelensky on Friday urged Russian President Vladimir Putin to hold talks to prevent people's lives from being lost. Russian presidential spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said on Sunday that Moscow sent a delegation to Belarus. The ruble has slumped by 30% against the US dollar after Western nations announced new sanctions against Russia over its invasion of Ukraine. The new record low for the Russian currency comes after some of the country's banks were banned from using the SWIFT international payment system. On Sunday, Russia's central bank appealed for calm amid fears that there could be a run on the country's banks. The move by the European Union, United States and their allies to cut off a number of Russian banks from SWIFT is the harshest measure imposed to date on Moscow over the Ukraine conflict. Finally, on world news, a key border crossing between Pakistan and Afghanistan has reopened days after fighting between security forces killed at least 3 people. Since the Taliban returned to power last year, border tensions between the neighbors have risen, with Pakistan alleging armed groups were planning attacks from Afghan soil. The Taliban denies harboring Pakistani rebel fighters. It is also infuriated by a fence Islamabad is erecting along their 2,700 kilometers long border drawn up in colonial times and known as the Durand Line. That's on World News.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
For your wheel lease, visit the Leasing Mahagedara. People's Leasing, friendly leasing Mahagedara. More information from the nearest People's Leasing branch.
People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
Development News is brought to you by... Let's take all out of the coconut tree and make the island thriving and prosperous. Call our hotline 1928. WhatsApp 070 400 1928.
A joint committee consisting of secretaries to the Ministries of Tourism and Transport will be appointed to expedite the modernization of railway stations to make them attractive to tourists. Its purpose is to avoid delays in existing railway station modernization projects and to complete them expeditiously. The Ministry of Tourism has taken steps to modernize Nanoya, Valigama, Alla, Bandaravilla, Bentota, Gaul and Hapatule railway stations as tourist destinations. Secretary to the Ministry of Tourism S. Hettiarachi informed the renovation work at Alla, Bandaravilla, Bentota and Gaul railway stations had already been completed.
Development News was brought to you by... The coconut tree is well grown in almost all the parts of the island. It is an exceptional source of extra income. The shell, the husk and almost all the parts of the coconut tree makes you money, providing you with an excellent extra source of income. It will also help to nourish the economy of the country. You will be guided with all necessary informations regarding the coconut cultivation, with the novel cultivation techniques and all other related and upgraded informations by the Coconut Research Institute, Lunavilla. Call our hotline 1928. WhatsApp 070 400 1928. Sports News is brought to you by
Sampath Bank. We present your future.
And in cricket stories, Australia's cricket team has arrived in Pakistan on its first tour of the country in nearly a quarter of a century and into a security bubble that will envelop them throughout their 6-week stay. Australia pulled out of a tour 5 years ago after a suicide blast at a Lahore church. They last played in Pakistan in 1998, winning a 3-test series 1-0 and blanking the hosts in the 3 one-day internationals. And in football news, the Federation Internationale de Football Association of FIFA has told Russia to complete their upcoming games in neutral territory under the name of the Football Union of Russia without their flag and anthem following the invasion of Ukraine. Several nations have announced they will refuse to play Russia, including England and Wales, as well as Poland and Czech Republic and Sweden. That's on Sports News.
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Ceylon cinnamon was added in the Register of Protected Designations of Origin and Protected Geographical Indications recently. The EU Commission, by the implementing regulation, entered a name Ceylon cinnamon, indicating the relationship between the specific geographic region and the name of the product, where a particular quality, reputation, or other characteristic is essentially attributable to its geographical origin. An enhanced competitive position of Ceylon cinnamon in the EU market will have a positive impact in terms of an increase in exports for Sri Lanka, high income and employment generation across the cinnamon value chain, benefiting about 30,000 stakeholders involved in cinnamon production and processing.
Business News, sponsored by
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. Will you be the lucky winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee? 50 gold sovereigns for the top prize winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee. Scooters for the 10 second prize winners. iPhones for the 10 third prize winners. Mountain bikes for the 29 fourth prize winners. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Economic news, courtesy of
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011.
Foreign Minister Professor Gilles Pires met with French Minister Delegate for Trade and Economic Attractiveness, Frank Reister, at the Foreign Ministry in Paris to discuss French support for the expansion of economic relations with Sri Lanka in a variety of sectors. The Foreign Ministry said a memorandum of understanding was signed between the two ministers at the conclusion of their discussion. The main focus of discussion was networking arrangements between French and Sri Lankan companies and French expertise for educational programs in entrepreneurship, business, management and related subjects. And that's on economic news.
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011.
The Weather Report.
The Department of Meteorology says several spells of showers will occur in the eastern and Uva and in Polonnaru and Matale districts. Showers or thunder showers will occur at a few places in the western and Sabaragamu provinces in Kandy, Nuwara Galle and Matala districts during the evening or night. General public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. Sea areas, a disturbance located in the southeast Bay of Bengal and the adjoining South Andaman Sea area is likely to intensify into low pressure area during the next 48 hours. That's the weather update, and before we wind up the bulletin, back to the headlines. The 49th session of UNHRC begins in Geneva today. The PUCSL approves continuation of extended power cuts. More fuel ships to arrive in the country today. The Health Ministry says no PCR tests for Sri Lanka-bound travellers from tomorrow. The Archbishop of Colombo is to meet His Holiness Pope Francis at the Vatican today. Geological Survey and Mines Bureau to resume construction of the Green Sand Ferry concept from tomorrow. Outpouring of support for stranded Ukrainians. In international stories, Ukraine and Russia to hold talks. In sports, cricket, Australian cricket team arrives in Pakistan for first tour in 24 years. And with that, we conclude the afternoon bulletin of news.